Welcome back to Anding Farm, our 6 acre of the Trough of Bowland, where we manage our paddocks, our nursery and our bit of woodland that we've got down at the bottom. In the last couple of weeks we've had some really warm weather and everything everywhere, nettles, docks, grass, everything's starting to grow, pathways are disappearing, and today we're going to spend a bit of time trying to manage some of the areas and claim back some of the pathways so we can use them again. So if you come with me today, let's see how much we manage to get done before the day disappears. As you can see, although the animals have cut a little pathway going through here, the nettles are really starting to take over. So every time we're coming through to feed at the moment, we're brushing past nettles. We use a lightweight battery trimmer, just keeps it nice and quiet-ish, but it does enough to be able to cut back for the areas that I'm doing. Most important thing, if you're using any trimmers or equipment in the garden, is to make sure you're using safety equipment. First thing I've done is put a pair of glasses on because I know bits are going to be flying everywhere. But all I want to do here is really open up the pathway and just take some of the vigor out of the nettles at either side. That's all we're doing. One tip, quite a lot of these electric strimmers basically are bump fed. So the nylon line that we use here is quite lightweight, so it shouldn't in theory cut through my fences, which is always a bonus. It's not a particularly heavy line and it's a lightweight trimmer because I'm conscious I don't want to cut loads of holes in my fences. But the other thing, you probably saw me do it then, was just to bounce the head on the floor because it's a bump feed. So when I actually tap when it's running the strimmer on the floor, it'll automatically extend the length of the nylon cutting line out, and then the line itself will be regulated by the cutter blade which is set inside the head. So just to show you, you've got a cutting edge there, so that when I bump it out the line and it hits this cutting line, it will cut the nylon. So if you come with me, because this copse of trees behind us here is now quite well established, this is one area, so we will actually leave all the grass inside there and all the wildflower growth in there. That won't be cut down, I'll leave that all year. When it's hot and dry like it has been for the last 10 days, because the trees in this area are actually established now, leaving the grass long and the wildflowers up around the base of them can actually help to keep the soil moist, because the sun and the wind can't get down to evaporate the water from the base. So it actually helps with established plants and established woodland to leave some of the undergrowth there, because that's actually helping to protect the soil and keep the moisture in the soil. And when it does rain, it means that that water is not suddenly shooting off at 100 miles an hour, but it's actually slowly permeating into the ground, which will then provide more moisture for the trees that are there. And that won't get cut now till the autumn. So complete opposite, if you've got newly planted trees in your garden, then what I'd suggest is ensuring that you keep ideally a gap around the base of the new trees and keep that clear of weeds and grasses, because they're going to compete for the moisture with a newly planted tree. With our copse areas around the farm, and again with our field boundaries, we actually allow the wildflowers and the grasses to do their own thing pretty much through the summer. So this creates our own little pockets of habitat and biodiversity through the farm. And we have lots of small nesting birds that will visit. There'll be lots of small mammals that will be living in these areas. And by leaving the grass and the wildflowers in place and not trimming back and being too precise, we're letting nature do its thing, which is creating lots and lots of little habitat pockets which interconnect then as we're going through the farm. This paddock that we're in now has been grazed. The alpacas have been in here, the sheep have been in here, and they've been alternating for the last couple of months. But now we're going to leave this for wildflower and see what develops over the next 6 to 8 weeks. It will mean that I've got some very tall grasses in here, and then I'll bring the alpacas back into this paddock, and probably we'd then need to start topping out some of the grasses and some of the weed. But we've just moved the animals in the last few days, and the clover that was being grazed down is now starting to come into flower. So just by my feet here, I've got lots of clover coming through, and we did have a lot of yellow bird's foot trefoil coming through and kidney vetch last year. So it'll be quite exciting to see what else happens. The sheep, when they've been sheared, will then move into the paddock where the alpacas are now. They'll then eat down the young dock, which is just coming through in that paddock. This paddock at the moment is very little in the way of dock, so I'm going to leave this for Wildflower now and see what develops over the summer. So basically what we're doing is land management, and it seems to be all about grass at this time of year, be that the hedge boundaries, be it around the copse, be it in the fields, or be it around the nursery and the pathways so we can access. Now let's go and have a look in the nursery. So again, you can see where we've cut the access paths that work around the nursery, but you can also see behind me where I've let the boundary around the pond, we've left that for the wildlife. So basically the area around the pond here, we've left the grass nice and long, which is providing shelter for the frogs and the newts, etc. that use the pond, and for any other invertebrates. At the boundary of the nursery here, you can see where we've let the grass grow a bit longer, and what's really encouraging is we've got wild carrot and campion, etc. that we've been seeding behind it, that's all now starting to flower. So just by not cutting that area, it's meant that the wildflowers have taken the opportunity to seed into that area, and this is going to be a real blaze over the summer. Yes, there's grass in there, but there's also some fantastic wild carrot just coming through as well. And the foxgloves that we seeded a few years ago are really starting to come now as well, and they're again going to offer lots of nectar for pollinating insects over the summer. One of the questions I was asked this week was about wildflower meadows and how to control an area if you've got a lot of grass that's starting to come through. So what I thought is, with this area which is getting quite grassy at the base, I'll show you just quickly how to do a mid-season chop. And this feels very counterproductive because I'm actually going to be chopping off a lot of the flowers that are coming out now. But what it's going to do is to reset this area and allow it to flower later on, and it's also going to keep the growth more compact and open up a bit more air and light at the base of the meadow, which is going to create or allow a lot more wildflowers to come back and flower for later on in the year. So the technique is very simple. All I'm doing is lightly chopping through an area at approximately 8 inches or 200 mil in height. And then all I'm going to do is very lightly pull off all the cuttings, so I'm not allowing those down into the ground. Particularly this longer grass at the back, I'm just going to top that little area. And what that's going to do is just allow a bit more air and light in at the base, which will allow a few more wildflower species to come through and help to control the grass that was starting to take over that area. So I'm using a traditional hay rake with approximately 2-inch spacing. just to lightly pull off the cuttings. Nothing sharp, and I'm just literally combing the cut debris through rather than trying to pull out the species. And even just doing that, you can now see at the base where I've just cleared back some of the grass, all the new wildflower seedlings that are just starting to come through at the base. So by cutting back and opening up the air and light and letting that into the bottom of the meadow, that's going to help to those wildflowers to then flourish and help to control some of the vigour of the grass. Because I'm just doing a small area here, I'm just using hand shears because personally I find that the easiest, quickest way of doing it. You could use a scythe or a sickle in exactly the same way, or you could use a strimmer, but because I'm just doing a little trial area, I just wanted to quickly get in with a pair of shears and do it. It's the simplest way for me to do it. That's the only reason that I'm using shears. If I was doing the whole area, then I'd probably go and get a scythe, to be fair. It is very forgiving. It feels very counterproductive to be chopping flowers off, but it will mean that I get flowers later in this patch, and also it'll take some of the dominance of the grass away. And then we'll probably try and come back in probably a month's time and we'll compare the two areas and see how the wildflowers flourished in that area. Never-ending job this time of year, but if you've got container plants, it's absolutely vital basically just to stay on top of the weeding and just remove anything that seeds itself in, because if you let that grass develop, it'll then start to take the moisture and the nutrients away from the tree, which is what we're trying to grow, or whatever you're trying to grow in your container. So we're just trying to take out all the grass seedlings and just keep everything nice and clean. Edges of the nursery, as much as anything else, we do need to cut just so we can actually see where our track is and we don't lose it completely under grass. Again, around the base of some of the trees we will cut with the strimmer. We also use the sickle mower or scythe mower, which is about the only one that's up to going up and down our slopes to control the grass. So around the nursery beds, the one thing that has saved a big amount of time for us over the years is finding the right mower. This is our sickle bar or scythe mower, based on an old traditional Allen mower style. This is a lot lighter these days. It's a simple petrol engine, very efficient little engine, and two reciprocating blades that move backwards and forwards against each other. And it allows us, particularly here, to alter the height that I want to cut to. So if I want a high cut, I can be up with the blades and cut at that height. If I want a lower cut, I'm just adjusting the height of the cut as I go. But it does mean that around the nursery I can cut the grass and I can also get up and down the slopes. It does make a big difference. It's actually easier sometimes to use this than it is to use a small little topper on the tractor. This can get to places that the tractor can't. Okay, well that's today's battle with the grass, almost done, apart from this top paddock. But for today, I'm just going to get on and top some of the dock that are up in this top field. I'm not going to cut everything, I'm just going to use this to do a high cut through on all the dock to stop that seeding through into this area, so I can see where my track is again. So thank you very much for joining us for this week. If you like what you see, then please obviously hit like and let us know, or if you want to see any more, then please feel free to subscribe. Thank you for watching.
Okay.